Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Invest San Antonio 2022 official virtual launch conference. I see there are still a lot of people coming into the room, so we will be getting started here in just a few minutes. But I would like to remind everyone that this conference is live streaming on YouTube and will be available on our YouTube channel at the close of the show. It's almost showtime. We will be starting the conference momentarily, but I wanted to make note that the Q&A feature will be available to the audience during the panel discussions. So please be sure to send in your questions for our panelists. Welcome to the Invest San Antonio 2022 official virtual launch conference. I want to take this opportunity to thank all of our sponsors and partners that help make this event possible. We will begin the event momentarily.
Capital Analytics is a unique multimedia platform.
How the economic machine works in 30 minutes. The economy works like a simple
Capital Analytics is a unique multimedia platform that specializes in business intelligence on dynamic markets through our digital and print reports, high-impact conferences and events, as well as top-level digital content through our video platform, Invest Insights. We are unique in our approach in that over a 6-month research period, we interview over 200 local CEOs to put together the information that becomes the contents of each 200-page annual report. Our platform takes a deep dive into the most important economic sectors to promote the markets in which we operate to the national and global investor, entrepreneur, and business person. But it is not only the annual business guides we produce. Capital Analytics hosts high-impact leadership summits where executives convene to discuss the latest obstacles and how to best tackle them. Next, our subscribers stay up to date through our weekly newsletters. We cover hot topics and key issues relevant to the day-to-day business, keeping our subscribers to the annual reports continually up to date. We also put a voice and face to the words in our Invest Insights video series. Hear perspectives on the markets we cover and why they are advantageous from the people making it happen right now. And lastly, the Capital Analytics podcast, where our listeners take us on the go to stay informed of the latest business advice from those at the helm. At Capital Analytics, we know great words come from great minds, and so we bring you real insights.
Good morning, San Antonio. I'm Abby Maloney, the President and CEO of Capital Analytics. Welcome to the launch of our inaugural Invest San Antonio 2022 report, an in-depth analysis of what makes the region tick, where are the opportunities, and what challenges lie ahead. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. In doing the initial research for our report, we knew, of course, that the region has a deep connection to the U.S. military. We knew about Riverwalk and the Alamo, but companies and businesses don't relocate their lives to be near tourist attractions. A region needs to offer a great deal more. Throughout our conversations with leading voices from both the private and the public sectors, many of whom are joining us here today, we learned that the essence of what makes San Antonio region a desirable place to work, live, and play is why San Antonio continues to be one of the fastest growing cities in the country. Obviously, the defense industry is a big part of the economy, but for those on the outside looking in, it may be a surprise to learn that other leading industries include healthcare, bioscience, and cybersecurity. The tech sector is also expanding, and there is a well-entrenched financial and professional service industry. The region's affordability and high quality of life are among the strongest attractors, as is the education sector that is consistently developing top-notch and invaluable talent pipeline, a fact that has never been as important as it is now in today's labor-challenged world. Educational institutions, of course, suffered greatly during the pandemic, but the positive from that is the level of collaboration that has emerged. On our first panel today, they will address that and our need to develop deeper ties to solidify the sector moving forward. Economically, the region overall suffered consequences of COVID-19 pandemic, just like everywhere else, but it took necessary steps early in emerging in a position of strength. An increasing focus on creativity and innovation, the subject of our second panel today, will help keep the region on its growth footing. Of course, there are also challenges that need to be addressed. We all know very clearly that diversity, equity, and inclusion are integral components of any company or organization, and many are moving to ensure that they're on the inside of the issue and not on the outside looking in. Other challenges include disrupted supply chain, with one result being inflation that remains a threat on the horizon. Workforce development will be key moving forward, as will the development of more affordable housing as prices continue to tick up. But when we look at the overall picture of the greater San Antonio region, what we see is a great deal of optimism. At this time of change, as we are now mostly accustomed to living with COVID, it's particularly important to look ahead, learning on the lessons from the past 2 years. At Capital Analytics, like so many other businesses, we saw the pandemic as an opportunity to change things up. Business intelligence is never more vital than it is today, if it's in print, digital, or virtual conferences like these. First, we expanded our talented team at Capital Analytics that have entered into 11 new markets in this post-pandemic climate: San Antonio, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Pittsburgh, Nashville, Raleigh-Durham, Dallas-Fort Worth, Jacksonville, Cincinnati, and North and Central Jersey, bringing our economic reporting library to just under 20 metro areas. Next, our Invest Insights video platform has exploded. We brought our network of high-level CEOs in front of the camera to share with our audience their views and advice on everything from creativity in light of the pandemic, cryptocurrency and NFT's long-term effect on banking norms, the Great Resignation, and retaining and attracting talent, and so much more. We will be filming season 5 this month, and over the past 4 seasons, we found that our partners, like yourselves, want to participate, want a community connection, and want to get the message out that the world marches on. We expanded that video platform to a podcast so that our readers and viewers can listen to this informative content on the go. In all our discussions with hundreds of businesses and political leaders over the past year, a common thread is how far we've come in such a short amount of time, how advances that were supposed to take years have taken a couple months. Today, San Antonio stands as a leading example of what it takes to not only grow stronger, but to grow better. We have quite a lineup for you today. However, before the discussions begin, I'd like to take a moment and thank the sponsors for today's event. Our gold sponsors, Overland Partners, Texas A&M University, University Health, and Vantage Bank, Texas. And our honored partners, the Chambers, Schertz, Cibolo, and Selma, the Greater Bernie Chamber of Commerce, the Greater New Braunfels Chamber, the North San Antonio Chamber, the Seguin Area Chamber, the San Antonio Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce. Thank you. It is with your continued support that we can bring high-level speakers and content to the greater San Antonio region. I would also like to recognize the team who worked tirelessly on this year's report. Alina Manak and Jerica DeBoy, well done on this inaugural report. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our opening keynote, the Mayor of San Antonio, Ron Nirenberg.
Good morning, I'm Mayor Ron Nirenberg. Thank you for your interest in San Antonio. Our community is emerging from the COVID-19 pandemic with a robust economy and some historic steps by the city and its voters that are designed to ensure our economy is stronger than ever going forward. San Antonio remains a culturally diverse 300-year-old city with a unique atmosphere that makes it one of the most special places in the nation. And I strongly believe the investments that San Antonians are making in ourselves will reap dividends for all who decide to be part of our future. DeLorean Motor Company's announcement last week that the firm was moving its headquarters to San Antonio as it transitions into electric automobile manufacturing makes a strong statement about San Antonio's momentum. DeLorean joins Toyota and Navistar in our growing automotive sector. Toyota is going strong, and Navistar is expected to start building diesel and electric trucks here this spring. DeLorean will become part of the cluster of forward-looking companies at Port San Antonio, which is making history as a successful technology and innovation campus, making the best possible use of a former Air Force base. Our economy was soaring when COVID struck. But when tens of thousands of workers were displaced by the COVID pandemic, we knew it was time for a bold move to ensure that our community was less vulnerable to pandemics and other calamities. So with voter approval, we are launching an ambitious workforce development program that will serve San Antonio residents and employers who do business here. Some 77% of voters approved the workforce program in November 2020. SA Ready to Work is a 4-year, $200 million program that will enable thousands of workers to train for new jobs in new career fields, to train for jobs with a future that would be more than just a paycheck to meet this week's bills. With input from local employers, SA Ready to Work is designed to address employer needs and train workers for jobs that exist in our market today. Our business community has embraced this effort. More than 80 local employers have pledged to participate in the program, which includes job training and degree completion components that will enable residents to get the training or education they need to secure better jobs. Meanwhile, Alamo Colleges is also continuing Alamo Promise, a last dollar scholarship program which offers free tuition for local graduates from high schools with low college attendance rates. These programs will change the economic trajectory of thousands of residents and put trained, better prepared workers in the pipeline for our employers. The need for more affordable housing is also a key issue that has surfaced around the nation in recent years, and the economic consequences of the pandemic made the problem even bigger. We will be asking San Antonio voters to approve $150 million in housing bonds in May as part of a $1.2 billion bond package. Last year, voters gave the green light to a city charter change that allows the use of bond funds for housing. The funds will be used for rehabilitating existing owner and rental housing, as well as to stimulate new housing construction for affordable housing units. Ensuring adequate affordable housing stock will help the entire community by combating the forces creating higher prices and reducing displacement. I'm extremely proud of our city's willingness to invest in building a better future. Amid the personal and economic ravages of COVID, we kept our eyes on the prize. San Antonio will emerge as a stronger city. We are boldly pushing forward and plan to be a shining example of sustainability in the post-pandemic era. Thank you and have a great seminar, and I hope you will join us in ensuring that San Antonio is one of the nation's great 21st century cities.
Morning, everyone. Thank you, Mayor Nurnberg and the City of San Antonio for opening our event today. We appreciate all of the support you've given to this inaugural edition, and thank you not only for setting the tone on an exciting and forward-looking series of panels we have for you today. While I wish we were gathered together in person, it's my pleasure to be with you here virtually. For those who do not know me, I'm Jack Miller, and I'm the Regional Director at Capital Analytics overseeing the South region. I would like to add my thanks also to everyone who contributed to this year's report, the inaugural edition of Invest San Antonio. We are grateful for the wonderful, long relationships we have developed in the market. I want to take just a moment to update you on our work. Since publishing the first Invest edition in Miami 8 years ago, we have only continued to grow and have expanded throughout the country. In addition to San Antonio, we have also just begun research for our first edition of Invest Dallas-Fort Worth, which will be released later this year. To sign up to receive any of our newsletters for any of these markets or a copy of our reports, please email contact@capitalalA.com or visit our website, www.capitalanalyticsassociates.com. We are conducting 2 polls during today's event to get your thoughts on current things happening in San Antonio and the world in business overall. The first of these will pop up on your screen now, so go ahead and answer the question, what are your thoughts on a proposed metro system for San Antonio? We have a great lineup for you today with 2 panel discussions, so stay tuned throughout. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our first panel, the Partnership Principle, why collaboration will be key for the future of higher education. Moderating this panel today is Dr. Cynthia Teniente Matson, President at Texas A&M University. Cynthia, if you could please turn on your camera and unmute yourself.
Good morning.
Great to see you. Thank you for being with us today. I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce the rest of the panel and take away the discussion.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all. Welcome. I'm delighted to share some time and some thinking with this distinguished panel of my colleagues. As we recover from the pandemic with a rebounding economy, we face a lot of new challenges. My fellow presidents have experienced a tectonic change, rapid fire shifting in the impact of higher education. As we reset, we've all experienced the workforce and the career pipeline changes, and we know what we need to do as we come together to meet the future needs of our community, our region, and our state. We're fortunate that San Antonio is such a robust city, as you heard from our mayor. We have many assets here, but among them, a rich array of community colleges, public colleges, and private colleges that are really make San Antonio known as a university city. And now with the impact of the 1/8 sales tax, we have the opportunity to really be a national model as a city program is targeting 40,000 applicants, and this robust program focused on stackable credentials and higher ed sector really engaging in development and preparedness for not only the underemployed, but moving people to new careers. We're also very fortunate that our elected officials brought us together early on to be co-thinkers, co-partners, co-problem solvers with our community. And we know Texas is facing a very robust job growth. We see that in 5.6% job growth over 2020. We were the second highest in the country to create new jobs with over almost 700,000 jobs added to our economy in the same year. In San Antonio, we're poised with this great population growth to rethink the future of our city, leveraging our higher ed sector to collaborate with the business community to prepare for the new and unforeseen demands of a knowledge economy. So on the panel today are my colleagues and friends. Let me start with Dr. Danny Anderson, who is the president of Trinity University, Dr. Thomas Evans, who is the president of the University of Incarnate Word, Dr. Adina Williams-Lawson, who is the president of St. Philip's College, and Veronica Salazar, who is substituting in for President Amy, who had an emergency today and Veronica is joining us from the University of Texas at San Antonio. So welcome to all of my colleagues and our panelists. We have a lot to cover today. So I'm going to start with some individual questions to each of you. And I'm going to start with you, Dr. Evans. When we're thinking about partnerships and collaborations, and I know you've pursued a number of them already with colleges and universities, and with your larger organization of Sisters of Charity for the Incarnate Word, to expand access and opportunities to students, employees, and their dependents. With that experience in mind, how do you see partnerships or greater collaboration as a key tool against declining national enrollment rates? And how can these efforts be replicated across higher education in your view?
Well, thank you, Cynthia. It's great to be with you. Great to see you all, even if it's only virtually. And you ask a wonderful question. Partnerships have a multitude of benefits, and certainly enrollment can be one of them. We've been very intentional in developing our partnerships and making sure that they further our mission and strategic plan, and also prepare our students to fulfill the workforce needs of the region. 3 of our strategic priorities have to do with partnerships. One is creating opportunities with our sister ministries, which you already mentioned, developing pathways to a UIW education, and being a premier education provider to the military and veterans. With our fellow ministries, we've established partnerships that offer discounted tuition for employees and their dependents, and created new scholarships for the high schools. This certainly strengthens our ties, but it gives the students and employees of the ministries an opportunity to continue learning in the charism of the sisters and supporting their mission. And these ties have also allowed us to develop mutually beneficial programs. So if we take, for instance, Christus Health, which is a ministry of the sisters, also through our partnership, we've established unique opportunities for each other. Our Red Carpet program offers Christus employees discounted tuition or access to specialized programs. And the Christus Purple Carpet program is designed to offer our students paid internships so they gain work experience, but ultimately offer an opportunity for employment and a signing bonus. So as I mentioned, we're also proud to offer education to the men and women of the military through online adult, graduate, and undergraduate programs. And because of the specific benefits through our School of Professional Studies, 56% of students in that school are military affiliated. As we know, the world is getting smaller, and we're preparing students for an increasingly global workplace. So we're also establishing those relationships internationally, opening doors for students anywhere in the world to become UIW students, and for UIW students here to experience a worldwide marketplace. We've created a global online that offers UIW degrees in Spanish and to Latin America. So we stress that partnerships are not just about countering declining national enrollment figures, but also about making sure we have a diverse population, and that those students who want to serve their communities have an opportunity to do so. So we've signed several MOUs with Hispanic serving institutions and historically Black colleges and universities that have created new pathways to health professions programs between our schools, and any other institution could replicate something like this.
Tom, are those pathways from undergraduate to graduate programs, or completing in the specialty lanes that you were referencing?
They're both. Some are direct from undergraduate into the health professions or a doctoral program, and then others can be undergraduate, they can be online. We have them actually in every direction with every type of program.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for setting this up with that understanding and context. Dr. Lawson, when you think about higher education, your own experience as NASA's senior education official, which is pretty impressive, what role do you believe partnerships play in helping inform not just the curriculum, but the actual educational direction of the organization, and really preparing students for the real world?
Good morning, everyone. Hello to all of my colleagues. Good to see you in this Zoom room. Wish we were together, but I'm happy to be a part of the panel and to share with you because remembering I'm 1/5 of the story for the Alamo colleges. There are 5 colleges in terms of the community college agenda. When you reference NASA, I'll step back and then move forward with my response. Referencing NASA, we were responsible. I had a role and a responsibility for a national agenda. And that national agenda was responding to where we found ourselves in terms of a depleted workforce in STEM. And we were at NASA, within 10 years, 60% of the workforce was walking away, and we didn't have the backfill. And then we began to realize this is just not a NASA issue. This is a national criticality in terms of students pursuing STEM and all the way to your universities producing PhDs in the STEM field. There was a decline in that area. So it's with great intentionality, my job assignment became to inspire the next generation of explorers. So with that job description to inspire the next generation, we worked every Wednesday because NASA was roughly 2 or 3 blocks from the Department of Education. But every Wednesday, I went to a Wednesday morning meeting at 8 a.m. and we met in the Secretary of Education's conference room. And that was me with NASA. We had the Department of Education and the National Science Foundation to talk about how we could attack this problem and this issue for creating talent. And as a result of that, we began to work with non-governmental associations because we knew a partnership was required. This is not a heavy lift for one organization, one entity, or one body. So we started looking at NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and we brought in, for my assignment, was to reestablish, as we saw it as a way to create excitement and interest in pursuing STEM fields. It was the Educator Astronaut Program. We've not had a teacher in space since Krista McCullough, and we know the result of that. But the 10th administrative NASA wanted to have the Educator Astronaut Program, and that was my responsibility. So we partnered with the National Science Teachers Association, the National Teachers Association, the National Math Teachers Association. We brought in all of the associations to have a more robust response to this national problem. And that was a partnership experience that I had at NASA. And to the end result, we allowed students to nominate their teachers to become educator astronauts. And so that engaged a whole new level of students in terms of STEM, the excitement, I got to nominate my teacher. And so we were successful to that end. And ultimately we sent 36 names down to Johnson to be considered 36 names of outstanding teachers to be considered as a part of the astronaut corps. And ultimately 3 were selected, 3 have flown, and 1 is now still in the candidacy for the next mission to the moon.
What an incredible impact.
Yes, it had a great impact, and in terms of engaging our students. And just a joyful comment aside, we had some teachers saying, I've got one, you don't need to bring them back. You can just send them, but you don't need to bring them back. So we had to deal with that. But anyway, that was the fun part. But now, so we're talking about even coming from NASA, one of the things that I was established immediately at St. Philip's, we started summer boot camps in math, science, and STEM, creating a college-going culture. And we started working with the middle school children because that's where it was falling off. And so we have continued that agenda, understanding that partnerships are very valuable. We have the summer boot camps we have with kids. We have multiple grants. In one year, we did have a grant with UIW for being an HSI, but we have continued to receive Department of Education grants, the Lewis Stokes grant, which we're partnering with all of the Alamo colleges, and we partner with your institutions for the students to do research. And you provide us with the professors, and we pay them the STEM to continue to work with our students. So the partnership in higher education is very valuable, and we are continuing that now with our Lewis Stokes for Minority Alliance for engaging students in significant research. And that is continued. It has now spread to others, but we were the first community college to receive that type of funding. It typically goes to universities. And continuing the partnership story, you heard the mayor talk about SA Ready to Work, and he referenced the Alamo colleges, he referenced all of us. But we too are partnering, that's a partnership with the many employers here in our community to hire our students and move them into the workforce. So no entity, we don't go it alone. You've heard the conversation, if you want to go far, you don't go it alone. So
Well,
Next
Dr.
person.
Lawson, so many great takeaways. I think one of the key things that all of us know as higher ed professionals is the importance of reaching back sooner and earlier. And you really threaded that needle with your whole discussion about Nassau, but then bringing it home to San Antonio with what you and other institutions are doing with elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools, because we know the drop off is earlier and earlier. And the importance of that reach back as partners really does make a difference in how our city can compete nationally and globally, and in your case, out in space as well.
Yes.
Dr. Anderson, it's wonderful to see you. With the aim of having Trinity University recognized as the model for a 21st century liberal arts and sciences university, what do you see as the role of collaboration and partnership in a world that is increasingly interconnected and interdependent? And what does that mean for our education now, post-pandemic recovery?
So thank you so much, Cynthia, for the opportunity to be here. And it's great to see all my colleagues on this call. One thing that I'd say just to begin my comments is, higher ed is a team sport. If you look at all of the different institutions here, behind the scenes, we all maintain contact with each other. We have a very different mission. We serve San Antonio a different way. And so together, our contact and partnership really does help us think about how do we collectively work on the message about the importance of higher ed for the city of San Antonio, the 7th largest city in the US, growing at a tremendous pace. When I look at Trinity specifically, we are a small residential liberal arts college, 2,500 undergraduates. And one of the things that I end up thinking about is that one of our key partnerships is that we are a pipeline to recruit leadership talent to the city of San Antonio. Increasingly, we're very selective in terms of admissions. More and more of our students seeing the opportunities in the city of San Antonio end up staying here, accepting leadership roles in businesses. We have a wonderful entrepreneurship program where you will find that our students are creating the businesses that are going to drive the economy of our city. And so the thing that I'd say in terms of the partnership, we focus a lot on how does a small residential liberal arts college that has an accredited engineering science program, the Michael Neidorff School of Business, how do we use that to really prepare our students to contribute to advance our community? Our students graduate with deep experience working in collaboration and partnership. They are very experienced in teams. They're remarkably effective as communicators. They can both write and speak and present in very persuasive ways for their organizations. But most importantly, they're excellent at their ability to analyze and make recommendations for action. I just look at all the ways that there's so many businesses in the city that are led by our alumni, and our graduates are out working as interns in them. Mayor Nierenberg, who spoke at the beginning of the presentation, is one of our alums, and some of the ways that he connects with students on our campus so that they hear from him the problems that he is trying to address, and they use their phenomenal interdisciplinary skills to present research projects that really give him some of the information that can accelerate some of the things that he is doing. So there are just multiple ways that even though we're small, we're mighty in terms of those connections with all kinds of organizations across the city.
Well, Dr. Anderson, you're certainly being modest in terms of the national reputation and ranking of your institution. But you introduced a concept that maybe for those people not in higher ed, you might want to take just a moment to explain what you mean when you talk about interdisciplinary experiences, as
Yes.
so much of our city's future is dependent on that.
Yes, thank you so much for that follow-up question. When you look at Trinity, one of the things that is really unique about us is that even though we're small, we have a very substantial $1.7 billion endowment. That allows us to invest in the kind of resources that are more associated with the research university. So we have students at Trinity who, in a very small, personalized environment, have all kinds of incredible experience. And because we're small, we also have faculty who talk with each other across disciplinary lines. When you look at the kind of issues that are facing our country, we could think about Ukraine crisis, all of the layers of what is being done there. It impacts energy, supply chain, thinking about international politics, culture, language. Trinity is a kind of place where our faculty can bring students together to think about what are the multiple levels of knowledge that need to be combined to think about how can we contribute to addressing an issue like that. When you think about climate change, sustainability, all of those are topics that there is not a single area or specialty that a student could study to address that, but it's going to take this wonderful mixture of different disciplines that create a new insight that far exceeds what a single discipline can do. And that is just one of the foundations of what we strive in terms of our students being ready to answer the tough questions that our world faces. And that's done because they can link together knowledge from different domains.
I love that, breaking out of our silos of excellence into working with other silos of excellence in this interdisciplinary approach. And it's so true with every problem we're facing today, not only in San Antonio, but the world as you described. Veronica, I know you're substituting in for Dr. Amy, and recently UTSA was named San Antonio Business Journal inaugural deal maker of the year in 2019 over the work done around the university's downtown campus. We've seen a lot of public and private organizations come to that table in that discussion. With that experience in mind, can you share a little bit about how partnership is not just one and done, but requires ongoing collaboration amongst a lot of stakeholders, and how UTSA is approaching that?
Well, thank you. And again, as Dr. Amy sends his regards and wishes he was here with this great panel. UTSA, and with President Amy at the helm, has been a partner to the city of San Antonio, to the county, to Bexar County. With we continue to partner with many entities, many of you at the table, to provide, to leverage our strengths, right? All of the partnership is about being able to leverage what's best from each other to actually create more. And so we're excited to continue those partnerships. Like you said, those are not one and done. There are more opportunities. There are different sectors of the city that we can continue to thrive and partner. There's different sectors with higher education that we can thrive and partner. We're also partnering with the UT Health Science Center to provide services for our students. We have a new Wellness 360 clinic that is providing, mental health and well-being for our students, that we had to quickly pivot to provide services in a different way through what we experience. We partner with our developer community. We are partnering also with many of our contributors and donors to the university to be able to provide more. So again, with that, the essence of the partnership is something that needs to be cultivated, that is worked on continuously and proven, right? We have to provide all of the results for those partnerships, and we continue to do that through also with SAISD and many of the higher institutions here. So we're really excited to not only start those partnerships, but again, continue to thrive in them and engage more to provide better services to our community and to our students.
Veronica, you touched on a number of issues, but I think one of them that you touched on that we haven't talked about is the importance of how higher ed is addressing mental health and mental wellness, physical wellness, and whole body wellness, especially now during the pandemic recovery and this long haul that we've had at a high octane level. Can you elaborate just a little bit more on that partnership that you were referencing?
Yes, and so UT Health Science Center, our sister institution, they are providing well-being, medical services for our students on campus, or providing also mental health support. We've also partnered with an outside provider to provide virtual support to our students, because it was critical for us to provide services for our students 24/7 in many different ways. So again, we stacked up all of those strengths to provide for our students. UT Health Science Center is also creating a new clinic on our campus, on our our Park West campus. And we continue to leverage their strengths and provide services to all of our athletes. So they are providing to medical services for athletes, and we continue to work through that to provide better services for our community. So we're creating a new School of Public Health with them in collaboration with UT Health Science Center. So again, there's just a myriad of opportunity with just one single entity that we can, again, leverage our strengths and provide more services.
Thank you very much. So for all of you now, I'm going to ask the same question. So the mayor introduced this idea of the 1/8 sales tax and the $200 million that that's going to provide and helping San Antonio be a national leader. So as we think about partnerships then and collaboration and engagement, a lot of you have talked about a number of topics around higher education and how do we change. But let's talk specifically now. How do you envision workforce development opportunities shaping San Antonio and making us different and unique from other metro areas? And I'm going to start with Dr. Evans. Dr. Evans is our university representative on the 1/8 sales tax Ready to Work Advisory Board. Did I get that title right, Dr. Evans?
Did, yes.
Okay. So you want to go ahead and share a little bit with us about how you see workforce development opportunities shaping San Antonio?
Sure. I think in a lot of ways it will change how we do things, and maybe it's already, we're seeing that at a lot of different institutions and how they might partner directly with corporations. And this sales tax opportunity with Ready to Work gives a really unique opportunity to have the funding for that kind of collaboration, but also really creating pathways and streamlining ways for citizens in the community, many of whom have been underserved for some time, to really lift them, their families, the communities, and ultimately this entire city through training and education. That training and education can take place in a certificate program, or it could be toward a degree program. One of the things that I think we've come to know is, especially as we look at cities that are really attracting a lot of knowledge workers, is they have a high percentage of a population that has advanced degrees. So having more of our citizens with advanced degrees, I think, will certainly lift the whole city, but also having the tools and skills within specific areas of which we as educational institutions and other partners that are involved in Ready to Work can readily provide, that are also very unique to San Antonio, and I think have a real flavor and distinctiveness as a city within certain fields. Cybersecurity, of course, is one of those, and I think we're all in some way collaborating on that. I know certainly with UTSA, but also within certain distinctive programs that we have, and that could be at a certificate level or at a degree program. Of course, the University of the Incarnate Word, with very strong health professions, has an entire catalog of things that we can offer, from rather quick training and development to things that are much longer. For example, becoming a nurse or some other field in the health profession. So I think we're all very well equipped as educational institutions, and also within our partnerships and the structures that have been created, to see Ready to Work really spring into action now that it's really just beginning. Train for Jobs is different from Ready to Work, and I think we learned a lot from Train for Jobs and how to address these issues. So that was a great learning experience for what we can now do for Ready to Work, and I think it's unique for our city. And I think a lot of other cities are looking at San Antonio now, and they're interested in what we're doing and how successful we can be to really lift our entire population and city. It's exciting.
Thank you. Dr. Lawson, I'm going to ask you, you've been in San Antonio a long time, one of the longest tenured in the Alamo Colleges as president. So part of the Ready to Work initiative is also to tackle generational poverty. And so how do you see this program and the work that you do in the Alamo Colleges helping to break that cycle where possible? And how do you see that as part of the national model in the conversation?
Okay, thank you. And thank you for that acknowledgement. I will say yesterday I celebrated my 15th year as president at St. Philip's College. So it's been quite a journey. And St. Philip's was we celebrated 124 years, not as old as Danny and his people.
Yeah.
We're getting there. We're youngsters and growing into it. This 1/8 sales tax to me is with it's now with great intentionality. We have been doing some of these things, but we had not formalized it across San Antonio, because each one of us can talk about our individual efforts and how we have partnered uniquely and have unique partnerships with various business and industries that are here. But now, with this 1/8 sales tax, we're now saying we're all in. We're all in and focusing in the same direction with some of the same goals and objectives. And it's with more intentionality about how we intend to have a collective impact with preparing our workforce. So, because if you think about the community colleges, we were mandated, we cannot start or offer an Associate of Applied Science degree without having a partnership with the business and industry. We are required to work collaboratively to have advisory boards to anchor all of our workforce programs, which would lead to a certificate degree or a degree in AAS. It has to be anchored to members of the industry. And we have to make sure that our students are having internships, externships, and opportunities to work in that environment as a part of their capstone course. So this is not new to us, but the collective impact is a different way that all of us are now approaching it. And so when I respond to that, I think about, so that's my response, is that we're now formalizing the response for all of us. You and I both serve on Greater SA Board, and we are intentional about how we're anchoring the workforce to new companies, industries that are coming into the San Antonio area. And we're marketing ourselves, and we're using these initiatives as sales points to say, this is why you want to come here, because we are focusing in on preparing the workforce, and we're going to partner with you to ensure that you're going to have the talents and the skills that you need. We have been partnering. Dr. Evans mentioned the cybersecurity. That is a huge element for San Antonio. We were already doing great things with cybersecurity when we think about NSA and those things, but we have been designated now as a center of excellence in cybersecurity and continuing that. Our bond campaign for the Alamo College's $450 million bond is focusing in on creating facilities that can help us prepare the trained workforce that is going to be essential. So it's many multiplicity of things. St. Philip's is the benefit. We get a new St. Artemisia Bowden building that is a cyber range facility, a new building that is now a cyber range that it can it's when the students go in, one day it's a manufacturing center, the next day it can be a hospital, or it can be hospitality. Yeah, so the cyber range capability. So we have the opportunities now to create facilities, to help deliver, to ensure that the students have the training space that will prepare them. So it's all in, looking at all aspects, and now marketing ourselves to have a collective impact. I think is what is important and what is uniquely different now than what we have all been doing individually. And we know when it's a collective impact and we're all focused in the same direction, then there will be exponential outcomes that we can all celebrate.
So well said, Adina. Thank you very much. Dr. Anderson, how does workforce development, how is that being infused at Trinity and what's happening here in our greater San Antonio?
So I would say, going back, the idea about the ways that we work together collectively, the conversations we have about how higher ed is something that has an impact in our city is really important. We each do it in a very different way. The importation of talent, I'd say one of the ways that I think about it is that for the kind of students who come to Trinity, they look at San Antonio and think, wow, this San Antonio, with the way that it is growing, given its history, its geography, its culture, is the Hispanic business gateway of the world. Mm-hmm. We stand right at the edge of Latin America. We are connected throughout all of the United States. And the kind of students who come and thinking about the professions that they're going to create, they're looking for major opportunities where they could think about how do they build a future, and knowing that we've got all of these efforts underway to elevate the level of all of the workforce in the city. It just creates a wonderful engine of opportunity in terms of what could be accomplished in San Antonio. And so many of our students who come wanting to be entrepreneurs, wanting to set up businesses, see the tremendous advantage. And in a sense, I would say San Antonio is a little bit of the future of everything that's going to be happening in the US. We have all of the kind of problems that are spread out everywhere, and we're addressing them because we work with collective impact. And that sense of coordination that we all participate in is just something that has been so dramatic as I think about my experience leading Trinity and being connected to the city of San Antonio.
I love that narrative, the city of the future and the Hispanic business gateway of the world. We do talk about that, and I love the way you wove that into your commentary. Great. Veronica, I have you the last word on workforce development.
So we're very fortunate at UTSA to have the ability to partner with Port San Antonio and UT System and our Simani Institute, and we're actually strengthening American cybersecurity workforce by upskilling and reskilling our workers through that partnership. We've been working on the institute, and we'll have a presence there in a Texas Manufacturing Transformation Hub at the port with our Cybersecurity Manufacturing Innovation Hub as well. So we are working towards actually upskilling the workforce through some of those efforts there in partnership. Our National Security Collaboration Center will bring in about 50 partners from all over the world, and to provide, again, skill sets for our workforce in the cybersecurity space, which is critical for us. So many different ways. And one important one I think that I want to mention is our partnership with SAIC and Animal Colleges and the new Construction Science Pathways and Technology. That program is actually housed in Lanier High School. And so it actually starts in the high school to bring up some of the workforce and training for our students there. So it's great efforts throughout UTSA.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone. I think we're just about out of time. So I'm going to maybe end with some vocabulary. We talked a lot about upskilling. Before the pandemic, we were hardly using this word upskilling. And for us, I think we've always noted as continuous learning. But so this new phrase of upskilling, interdisciplinary is another, it's not all that new, but we're using it all the time now to describe a lot of what we're doing interdisciplinary. And I think that's going to be one of the other key characteristics and traits of how this SA Ready to Work plays out in terms of partnerships. And then Adina said it so well. I've heard her say this. I use this too. All of us have talked about collective impact. The collective impact where the 5 of us on this panel exponentially can change the universe of San Antonio and our trajectory well beyond what we could do individually in our own lanes is really a key driver for partnerships, for collaboration, and for what we hope to be looking at in 4 years when SA Ready to Work sunsets, that we're going to be looking back at this year and this moment in April being a pivotal time frame for how the workforce development ecosystem looks in the future. So on behalf of Texas A&M San Antonio, I'm delighted to be with all of you today and to join in this launch of SA Launch, a key webinar with all of you. So back to you.
And if everyone can just hold for 1 second, we're going to take a quick picture. Smile. Perfect.
Great. Thank you so much, Cynthia, Adina, Veronica, Thomas, and Danny for being with us today and for that excellent discussion on the importance of education in San Antonio's future growth. So thank you again for being here. Also, thank you to our audience for answering our first poll. Again, the results will be revealed at the end of the event. The second poll will pop up now. So go ahead and answer as to what has been the biggest challenge for your business this past year. While you're answering that poll, as a reminder, all registered attendees today will receive complimentary access to read our Invest San Antonio 2022 report digitally. Look out for an email that will be sent around March 14th. Also, we are currently live streaming on our YouTube page where this event will also sit for anyone that would like to revisit it or share it around, share these great discussions around. Following the next panel, Alina Manak, our Executive Director for Invest San Antonio, will be closing out the event, so be sure to stay tuned for that. I would now like to introduce our second panel for today's event, Creativity versus Innovation. Our moderator for this panel is Elizabeth Crawford, CEO of Sendero Wealth Management and Sendero Family Enterprise. Elizabeth, great to have you here. I'm going to hand it over to you and let you introduce the other panelists and lead the discussion.
Great. Well, I'll give them a chance to get their cameras on and their mute buttons off. We're excited to have this conversation around creativity and innovation. There we go. Hello, Jeff. Rick, how are you?
Good.
Good. We're just waiting for Bill to turn his camera on and his microphone. There we go.
I am on.
Yes, you are. Great. So I just want to give a moment to each of you to please introduce yourself, your name, your title, and the firm so that I don't butcher any names. I'll go ahead, Rick, since you're in my upper left-hand corner, why don't you start?
You got it. Yeah, I'm Rick Archer. I'm one of the founding principals at Overland Partners architecture firm here in San Antonio, office in Dallas as well. And we do work all around the world, really helping our clients unlock embedded potential to create transformational projects.
Jeff?
Hello, and good to see everybody. My name is Jeff Sinnott, CEO of Vantage Bank.
And Bill?
Good afternoon. I'm Bill Phillips, Executive Vice President and Chief Information Officer for University Health.
Great. So our topic is creativity and innovation, and I thought it would be good to define those before we get started. So to create is to bring something into existence, to produce or bring about by a course of action or behavior. To innovate is to make changes to or to do something in a new way, to introduce something as if it's brand new. So a way to summarize it might be innovation is the evolution of creation. With that as our backdrop, we'll get started. So I will ask a question, and please, if you're interested in answering, just jump in. We're going to start with looking back. The pandemic forced everybody to get creative and innovate, whether we wanted to or not. We did it with processes, designs, and just ways of doing things. So how or which of those changes do you see remaining long-term as the pandemic fades? And since each of you are in very different industries, it'll be intriguing to hear your answers.
Well, I guess I'll go ahead and start it off. You're right. It was, I look at the pandemic and what we had to do as an organization was transformational, right? I mean, everything changed. We got calls to, okay, we need to start doing visits at home. So we had to implement telehealth. We need to have communications with parents and loved ones that have babies in the NICU, but now they can't visit. So how are we going to do that? We had to deploy mass vaccines. University Health set up a mass vaccination site here in San Antonio where we did hundreds and hundreds of thousands of vaccines, all during the pandemic while we're dealing with all these other issues. We had to enable remote workers, right? That was immediate. We have some business areas that couldn't come into work. We're trying to keep them at home. How are we going to do that? We had to shift with things like bed allocation. Okay, now we're changing beds from one type of bed to another type of bed. We moved to virtual meetings. We had individuals in our lobbies taking temperatures as patients and workers came in, but that was very time consuming with staff. So we had to come up with the methodology, and we brought in electronic temperature scanners that we placed that read your face and took your temperature. You know, you face those technology issues, but then we also had the downstream of that where we had staffing shortages hitting us, supply shortages. So all the technology that I just mentioned, think about that. A lot of that is cameras like we're using today. Well, in the midst of that pandemic, try buying cameras, right? You couldn't get a hold of cameras. It was impossible. So we were fighting all those things at the same time. And then we have to secure it. Cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is always going to remain a number one priority. But when I look back, and your question is what will really stick in the long run, you know, televisits, telehealth, telemedicine, that's going to be here and continue to grow and grow and grow. One, it's a convenience factor for patients. So you're really going to see that with future growth. I think organizations are going to have to be ready because we don't know what's forthcoming. We're going to have to be ready to stand up mass vaccine sites. I think with the staffing shortages, et cetera, remote work, I mean, I think every sector was challenged with remote workers. I think that will stay. Virtual meetings will stay. And then we're still going to have to deal with things like the staffing shortages and supply shortages in the long run. But I think that, you know, back to the innovation component, we had to combine all this at the same time. And like I mentioned at the front, and really transform the organization and now make it hardwired.
I think we're all still spinning from transforming.
Yes, we are.
Rick, what
Bill,
about you guys? Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, you are one of our clients, as is Children's Hospital, and watching our healthcare clients trying to pivot around this was probably the most difficult that I saw of any industry that we work with. Education might have been second, and we had a panel on of our educators before. Oddly, in some ways for us as architects, as a creative profession, we are so highly digitized. We work all over the world. We've always had remote employees. The pivot was really easy. I mean, we literally said one day in March of last year, we are going remote tomorrow.
Yeah.
See you all tomorrow morning. And while we did have some technology challenges, particularly younger people who didn't have laptops that could do the kind of computing that we needed, by and large, that happened very quickly and very easily. I saw a lot of innovating around how we work remotely with one another. We're in an extremely collaborative business. We all share a big office together, which you can see behind me. And we are, in fact, a creative industry. I mean, really what we trade in is ideas. And so I think our biggest concern was, are we going to lose our creativity while we innovate around how do we solve the problems of getting work done? And I really think we ended up spending, frankly, maybe too much time trying to figure out those innovations and not enough time with creativity. I wonder, as our industry, as we look back on this year, will we find our buildings to be more useful, more beautiful, more, really dealing with the issues that the world needs us to address, because we spend a lot of energy just getting the work done. We have clients literally that we interviewed with and we've worked with now for the last 2 years that we've never met in person.
Yeah.
And we're completing entire projects without any human interface. I think what will stick around is that we're now back in the office for the most part, but what will stick around for us will be a hybrid workforce. There are times when working remote is far more productive than being in the office. And there are times when collaborating in person is essential. And I hope that what we won't just take forward is innovation, but that we'll really refocus on creativity, which is that what you do when you don't know what to do part of things. And that I think is going to be a challenge as we all move forward.
Yeah, great insights. I mean, the innovation is refining creativity for the moment, but if you don't have that creativity, you lose the ability to innovate. So great.
And if you don't have the innovation, you actually don't implement on the creativity.
Right.
It's just ideas that don't become a reality. So it is really in the interface between those two that we live every day.
Jeff, how about you? You're in the banking sector. All of a sudden you had to turn on your head and figure out how to do everything remotely or with smaller staff. So tell me what happened with you guys.
Well, first, yes, listening to Bill, I cannot imagine some of the challenges that you guys face in the healthcare world. For Vantage, we had some, we had benefits of bringing two banks together in a third market about 3 years ago. And with that, we had adopted a decentralized model. And so we had focused a lot on digital workflows, digital transformation, really in between our employees. So, kind of like Rick, when the pandemic started, we were able to pivot very quickly and go remote and offer services remotely to our employees and to our customers. But there's, some interesting things that occurred as well. So when we started the bank and bringing them together 3 years ago, we focused on this, but the adoption of these platforms that were very digital and collaborative and really geared towards innovation were being used by a small group of the employees. And so you typically saw, the same 20 people really adopting the type of technologies we're working on, the platforms that we're working on, and believing in that direction and the future there. And when the pandemic happened, a lot of the other employees now were forced to start adopting these ways of doing business, these ways of connecting to each other, these ways of connecting to our customers. And so that adoption grew exponentially overnight. And that changed the mindset of our employees. that changed the skill set of our employees. And I think it's positioned us, very well coming out of the pandemic for, the digital world moving forward. So in terms of what's going to be sticking with us moving forward, I think all of it. A lot of it did lead to more customer convenience, opening up accounts remotely, having employees be able to do the hybrid approach, having employees understand, all this technology and tools that are out there to help us collaborate, to help us manage workflows, to help us prove quality and do checks and balances. It has been greatly adopted and being used throughout the bank. And I think it'll make us all better for that moving forward.
Wonderful. Thank you. So has creativity and innovation become a mainstay of the conversation? Maybe not in those words, but as you look to problem solve with competition, disruption, consolidation, I mean, it's hard to think about any industry that's not facing those things. So have your solutions become more creative, or are you innovating more in what you're doing?
I'll kick that off. At Vantage, it's something that's been very intentional for us. We laid out a framework of our design process, our innovation process. Like I said, it's been much more widely adopted now, but it really is part of the way that we do business here at Vantage. And it's important, maybe for the first time, or definitely more so than ever in the financial services world, because there is so much disruption. And I really see that as a good thing. It's accelerating the pace of innovation. So at Vantage, we took a very intentional approach where we, as Rick was talking about earlier, we defined what do we want that execution culture to look like? What do we want to innovate to? Do we want to innovate to being a disruptor in the industry? Do we want to innovate to being the most efficient in the industry? For us, we want to innovate to really focus on organic growth and people positive innovations. And so that was step one for us. Step two was we developed our strategic pillars underneath that execution culture. What are the imperatives that we're going to work on? And then every one of our initiatives will start with a brief, how it supports that pillar. And then so all of our design processes then will work on that. We'll start with that creative stage in the beginning. That creative stage obviously is reflective all through the process. And we'll go from that creative stage to the building, to the understanding, to the proving, to the delivery, and the execution. But it's very intentional. You have to cultivate it. And in the way that we make it top of mind for our company and for our teams is we rotate a lot of different cross-functional groups through that process. And we have every one of those initiatives transparent in our DevOps board, which has been another interesting evolution. Is a lot of the technology guys are used to using some of these technologies to collaborate and design and innovate. But now we have our Azure DevOps model being used all across the bank. And so we have people rotating in from marketing, people rotating in for operations, collaborating together so that they can see these initiatives. And so we're excited about the transformation that's happening in the industry. We feel like Vantage is well positioned for that. And again, like I mentioned, we feel like the pandemic has helped us really change our mindset across the entire organization.
Yeah, we were really forced to adapt, to innovate, or to be completely left behind. And so it was a challenging, exciting, exhausting time. And it's nice to be on the other side and to look at what you're going to keep from those times. So Rick and Bill, Jeff did a great job of talking about how they're using things internal in their firm. Where do you see some of the most creative or innovative ideas and solutions taking place in your industries? And what do you see becoming mainstream for your firm, for your industry, as we move forward?
I'll go ahead and start with that. There's a lot. Healthcare today is just innovation after innovation after innovation. And there's things that are coming out that are just amazing. So artificial intelligence is one. Artificial intelligence is, revolutionizing healthcare from components where it's taking voice recognition and helping providers chart by just talking instead of having to typing. That allows providers to be more engaged with the actual patient. So you see that happening. You see it with clinical workflow improvements, surgery assistance, diagnostic tools. So voice recognition is one that I think is really going to continue in the healthcare. we've adopted and adapted some of that already with voice recognition, like I mentioned. We're looking to other components with patient tracking. And then another one that is really surprising in healthcare that I don't think most people recognize or even have heard of, and this is really going to start to kick off, is 3D printing. And most people say 3D printing in healthcare, are you kidding me? And no, we're not kidding, right? What this is happening is you're starting to see 3D printing come out with prosthetics, bionics. You get a fracture in your arm, they 3D print a cast. So you're seeing that really starting to really break that iceberg. And it even gets down to making customized surgical instruments to do surgeries with, and then taking imaging from that patient and utilizing that for different things, even organ structure. So these two items, I think, are really going to run in healthcare. And I think it'll be very interesting to watch how these continue to grow and what the change might be and improvements that'll come from these two.
Wow, I just became my parents. Thanks. I'm on the wrong side of the tech curve.
You know, it's interesting the overlap in many ways, Bill, from what you describe and what we do, which I think the greatest innovations are happening we're at the intersection of the world's greatest problems and technology as a driver of solutions. And it's no different for us. We're not dealing with the human heart, at least not the physical one. But we are really looking at this issue of how do we bring a creative process and a process of innovation like Jeff talked about to our clients to help them really create physical transformations that lead to human ones. Winston Churchill said that we shape our buildings or our cities, and after that they shape us. And so how are we shaping buildings today, and what kind of a future are they shaping for others? And so I would say one of the takeaways, the things that we have doubled down on is this notion that, yes, buildings need to be high performing from an energy perspective, from reducing carbon emissions, from many of the things that we often hear about with climate change. But also, ultimately, they need to really be about human flourishing, the same thing that Bill is doing in healthcare. And we do that through a process we call the human handprint. And we look at every project through 5 digits. The first one, the pointer, is why. It's the aspirational one. The middle finger is provocation or inspiration, which every project we undertake, we want to ask, what is inspiring? How is it changing the world? The ring finger is relationships. We have a series of relationships that we need to cultivate and maintain in every project that we do. And we're finding ways to innovate around connecting with our clients and with their stakeholders. The pinky is the promise that we make to the earth and to one another. It's stewardship. How do we steward well our resources, financial and environmental? And then the thumb is well-being. How are we doing? And so we've got all of our clients really working around those 5 digits as we begin to address the world's big problems. And if time permits, I'll share with you some of the things that we're doing that are addressing those in exciting ways. It's changing how we might think about the world we live in.
Let's go there for a minute. I know during the pandemic, I can't tell you how many calls I did about office space, about the office of the future. What does it look like? Do you need less space, more space? You heard arguments for both sides, and it impacts all of our businesses, banking, healthcare, all of it. We're all being challenged with what the office of the future looks like. Wellness is so important, making sure you are taking care of the whole employee. So what are you hearing from clients in terms of either questions they're asking, projects they're looking for? Where is the demand or the conversation going?
Well, I think that, like you just said, all clients are really questioning what does our work future look like? And I think that as architects, I can't come in and tell Jeff or Bill how to run their business or whether an employee should be remote or not. But we do come alongside people and we help them investigate and evaluate what's going to be the best physical space for the processes that you see happening in the future. And in so doing, we often find that we help them shape those processes as well. It's a co-partnering around finding the right solution. So for example, we worked with Haven for Hope. We designed that. Part of what we did there, and I met with them again late last week to say, okay, how are we adjusting? What are the changes that we need to be making? And so as a design professional, I would say predominantly what we're designing in is a lot of flexibility, recognizing that none of us really know where this is going. Technology helps build in inherent flexibility, but then having workspaces that can pivot and change really quickly, depending on the scale or the trajectory of the company. And then finally, I would say that we're finding that a lot of office environments are becoming laboratories for collaboration and innovation, and that the deep work, the focus work, is being done from home or a coffee shop. So we are in the process right now of reconfiguring our office to be designed specifically around the intention of getting together to design in collaboration.
I think it's, I think COVID in and of itself is a 20-year case study that my kids will study, and it'll go on and on. But I also think the office space, the hybrid model, all of this will be something that gets studied and is really worked out from a research standpoint for many years to come. And
I will say we returned
things.
fully to the office 2 weeks ago, and there was some resistance, maybe fear. People are thrilled to be back. I mean, the energy in the office, the excitement, the enthusiasm was beyond what I imagined. I think we quickly overcame those fears and realized the benefits of being together far outweighed the negatives.
Yeah, you realize how much the human being is made for relationships.
Yep.
Yeah. Jeff, I'm going to turn back to you on banking and finance. I mean, there's so much change that has occurred. I mean, even just over the last decade, you have fintechs as the buzzword and can raise money for anything. But what does that really mean for your industry, and how is Vantage looking at the future?
Yeah, so fintechs are part of our world constantly, and there's several different trends that are happening in the industry that actually support that movement. And one of those you're seeing is kind of decoupling of some of the traditional, very large monolithic core systems that banks use. So you see these fintechs coming in, focused on a very specific part of a customer experience, or an area where they can really add value. And it's usually a narrow focus, but done very, very well. And so we're seeing these fintechs partner in these different areas to do that. And we think that's a great opportunity for community banks. So we're embracing that. We're working very closely with several fintech companies. At Vantage, we've done a couple things. One, we have worked with our large core provider to provide direct access via an API to all the salient data points within the core system to allow us to quickly partner with some fintechs and integrate. Because what we see when we talk to these fintechs is they focus on one area, and that experience is really good for the customer as long as everything goes right. If something goes wrong and they need support or help, a lot of these fintech companies aren't set up for that. It's not really where their interests are. And so, Advantage, what we're positioning for is really to be that trusted partner in that ecosystem, where we can connect these experiences that are good experiences with one backbone, and then provide the service layer of that. When you talk to the fintechs about what some of their barriers are, is they get to a certain level of saturation or adoption, and then they hit this roadblock. And often it's because of a bad experience with service or a lack of trust. And so at Vantage, we feel like it's a good opportunity for community banks. It's a good opportunity for Vantage Bank to be that trusted partner, to be that service layer, to be committed to help a customer go through these different experiences and help them realize their financial victories. So we've been doing that strategy now for a couple of years with a couple key partners. We're embracing fintechs across all different areas: blockchain, crypto, microservices, omni, engagement banking, and we feel like that's it's in the end going to be a huge benefit for consumers, and something that we fully embrace.
You either change and continue to change, or you kind of die on the vine, and finding the way to be able to grab those innovations and changes and harness them and use them to your benefit is key to success. So then I think it's a great time to be a community bank. The environment is really good.
Yeah, we feel like putting the right people with the right expertise at the right time with the right resources is a great value proposition for sure.
So I'm going to put this last question out there. We may have time for one more, but we'll see. But I'd really like to hear from each of you on this. It's really about a key theme that arises when discussing innovation and creativity is the incremental nature. I mean, 2020 was a year when it was not incremental. and that's not something you can do all the time. But those big sudden changes are the exception, not the rule. So how do you see these small scale ideas and changes in your industry that really have the ability to transform later? And, you know, Bill, I think you talked about 3D printing. Okay, that's something that may be incremental right now, but is a complete disruptor. So from your areas, what should the audience be keeping an eye on?
I'll go ahead and run with that one to start with, since you just mentioned me. You know, again, healthcare is just exciting right now. And I'm going to take you back to being your parent again. You've heard of the Internet of Things. Well, there's a new term in healthcare, and it's IOMT, which is the Internet of Medical Things. And we're proud at University Health to actually be doing some of this. And what this is the connected medical devices and home monitoring, sensory monitoring, and those type of things. And, you know, what we had to do, again, the speed of what you have to get to these things is we had an issue, capacity. We're out of beds. What can we do? So we created a home health model where we're taking patients out of the hospital earlier, instead of them, patients that are eligible for this, and they move to the home, and we have a complete monitoring set up on that patient. They're monitored by nurses 24/7. And so it enabled us to help free up bed capacity. So I think you'll see more of the Internet of Medical Things. Keep an eye on that. You'll see telemedicine. Everybody knows telemedicine's growing, but we always take telemedicine traditionally as outpatient, right? You're doing an outpatient visit. That's moving into the inpatient side. You're going to see things of like virtual ICUs. You're going to see patient monitoring, like I just mentioned, but really through the methodology of telehealth, telemedicine. And then I think you're going to see things where you've watched the TV, you've seen the commercials where, you know, you put on the little goggles and you're spinning around and things, right? Well, think of this. That's called immersive technology. Think now of having those goggles on, but it's taking the next generation of surgeons and even current surgeons and walking them through a surgery, but without a real patient, right? All through the use of immersive technology, that they're actually fake arms where they're moving, cutting, stitching, but everything's like real. And it tells them if there was a mistake. It tells them what to do or how to do things better or different. So I think these are areas in technology, innovation, creativity in healthcare, which is booming in this sector with creativity and innovation, that are to watch these all encompass themselves and continue to run down their specific items or specific lanes that are really going to revolutionize healthcare for all of us for the very near future and then long term, because what will happen as each of these technologies continue to grow, they'll mature and mature and mature and mature.
Right. Yeah, it sets off a kind of a chain reaction, but I think I'm not going to recognize healthcare is what it sounds like.
Yeah. Exactly.
Rick, what about you?
Well, I think it's actually very similar, interestingly. And again, I'm going to go back to, you know, our charge is to actually address some of the world's biggest problems, whether that's carbon emissions or affordability or education or healthcare. We work in all those sectors, and we're seeing that buildings are now being required to perform in ways they didn't in the past. It's no longer about, is it pretty and do I like it, but can I actually prove that when I build this building, it's going to perform in the way that I said it would. And so Increasingly, we are interfacing with technologies at the front end, softwares like Enscape and TestFit and Giraffe, which are allowing us to visualize things using artificial intelligence, real-time visualization, getting into the immersive environments as Bill described, taking our clients into those immersive environments so they know exactly what they're going to be getting, but also in real time being able to tell our designers and our clients, and here's the energy performance of that design change. So if you make that change, it could cost you this much more money over X amount of time, and this is the impact you're going to have on the planet. So those are really exciting tools that are available to us. On the kind of the flip side, once we go into construction, now we're dealing with robotics and 3D printing, and we had the privilege of partnering with Icon, who's developing the first 3D printed buildings, and they've got a contract with NASA to print on the moon. And they've been an incredible partner in pushing us to understand the technologies are coming and to begin to think about how do we design for those different eventualities. Again, with a long-term goal for them of really addressing affordability, which is a major issue that all cities are facing. So I think that on the innovation front, technology is a major driver. On the creativity front, and I want to go back to that, that's more cultural. It's about creating an environment where people feel safe, where they want to be, where they can express new ideas, where they can, in the words of a second grader that I taught, do what you do when you don't know what to do, which is what creativity is. And I think that we are always challenged as a community of artists who then actually have to implement our art to balance between those two things.
So far, I've taken that crisis creates innovation, and we're going to need to do a whole nother webinar on how to absorb innovation as the user. Jeff, is there anything that you want to add to the conversation?
I'll just add a couple of things. First, in the banking world, for the first time, you're seeing kind of a sleepy industry moving much, much faster. The groundwork that really has been laid for that is like I mentioned before, the more of the open banking model that you see coming out of Asia and Europe. We partnered with a company out of Europe called Backbase to help us with that. But some of the things that you're seeing that are going to be iterative and incremental in the innovation coming is the knowing your data, understanding where that data is, who it belongs to, what the ownership of that data is, the models to integrate between your core system, your ERP system, and your partners. The blockchain technology is going to drastically change, I think, all of our industries. And so when you couple all those things together, I think you're going to see a much more proactive, much more what I would call on-demand engagement banking for consumers. You see some of that now today where you can do a loan at point of sale. And you'll see that in the life stages of the consumer, and you'll see that on the commercial side. One of the proof of concepts we're working with a partner on right now is using AI to best structure credit proposals for commercial customers to help them be most successful, have the right structure at the right time to help those commercial customers manage their capital. And so you're going to see this melding of AI and data and engagement banking come together to really provide, I think, an incredible customer experience. With partnerships, with blockchain, with AI and data, I believe you'll radically see a different financial services world in the next 5 to 7 years. In terms of creativity, I just want to say one thing on that real quick, because we talk about it quite a bit as well. And Rick is right. Both creativity and innovation have a lot to do with culture and with culture capital to allow you to enable those type of discussions. But I will say that I feel like creativity needs to be in the frame of what you're trying to accomplish. Because I've seen, it's good exercise to go through divergent ideas, but sometimes you need to pull those divergent ideas back to, what it means for your customer or what it means for your employees or the market or the community that you're in. So, creativity is definitely part of innovation, and it can happen anywhere during those rails of building that process.
Yeah, that last comment is a really good reminder for everyone. Otherwise, you just create some disordered chaos.
Yep.
I really appreciate everyone's time. I think the future is incredibly bright and I have a lot to learn, but the key thing we all have in common is that innovation and creativity will continue to be in our areas, and it's how we embrace them and use them. So thank you very much for your time and your insight. I appreciate it.
And if everyone can just hold for 1 second, we're going to take a quick picture. Everyone smile. Perfect.
Thank you to our panelists and our moderators and Mayor Nirenberg. I have to say we are so appreciative to have such an incredible group participate today in our first annual Invest San Antonio Leadership Summit. For those I have not yet had the pleasure to meet, my name is Alina Manak. I'm the Executive Director of Invest San Antonio and Invest Dallas Fort Worth. It has been a great pleasure to meet and collaborate with the leaders of the region to produce the inaugural edition of our Invest San Antonio publication. I have to say I was personally impressed and enthused by the warmth and the openness with which we were met. I received so much support in producing the publication from local executives who were excited to meet with me and share the amazing story of San Antonio's growth. The state of Texas, as we all know, is absolutely booming, and San Antonio is attracting businesses and people like never before. We have 70 people relocating to San Antonio every day, and that number continues to grow. The San Antonio MSA offers a business-friendly environment, a favorable tax environment, great weather, excellent geographic location, and most of all, I believe that San Antonio's most precious asset is its people, who are warm, friendly, hardworking, united, driven, and just sweet. From corporate relocations and expansions to historic industry growth, San Antonio is on the world stage today more than ever, and for more reasons than ever before. And I think that the over 500 registered attendees for today's event show just how impactful business intelligence is as a tool to attract and promote continued growth in the San Antonio region. And now I'll take a moment to also share the results of today's polls. So thank you to everyone who shared their thoughts for today's polls. We had two questions, as you know. The first question was, what are your thoughts on a proposed metro system for San Antonio? Mayor Nirenberg, I hope you're watching, because 70% of our attendees today said, let's go already. 29% said, no rush, just make sure it's done right. And then 2% said, we've gone this long without it, so it's not necessary. And then the second question was, what has been the biggest challenge for your business in the past year? 56% of our attendees said labor shortage. No surprises there. Supply chain issues, 26%. Economic slowdown, 18%. So once again, thanks for answering our questions. I'd like to once again thank our incredible partners and sponsors for their support in making today possible. Our sponsors, Overland Partners, Texas A&M University, University Health, and Vantage Bank Texas, and also our honored partners, the Chamber, Schertz Cibolo Selma, the Greater Bernie Chamber of Commerce, the Greater New Braunfels Chamber, the North San Antonio Chamber of Commerce, the Seguin Area Chamber of Commerce, the San Antonio Hispanic Chamber, and the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce. Thank you. And as a reminder, everyone, our team will be sharing a link following today's conference, so everyone will have access to the digital edition of our publication. I know everyone is waiting for it. I'm also excited to announce that we have begun work on our first edition of Invest Dallas Fort Worth. So if you'd like to nominate your firm or know someone in the North Texas region who should be interviewed, please reach out to me. My email address is amanac@capitalaa.com. That's AMANAC@capitalaa.com. And while this year's Invest San Antonio publication might be complete, we at Capital Analytics continue to expand our reach year after year. So stay tuned for more news and updates on San Antonio and the other markets we cover by registering for our newsletters at www.capitalanalyticsassociates.com or by writing to contact@capitalaa.com. Thank you again for joining us today, to our virtual attendees, to our sponsors and participants, and to everyone who contributed in making Invest San Antonio 2022 such a tremendous success. Thank you and take care.